Kia ora, welcome to episode 102 of Talking Dairy. I'm your host, Jack McGowan. Today we're talking about how to build a high-performing team and why it matters now more than ever. A strong team drives productivity, lifts morale and helps your business stay resilient when things get tough. For many dairy farmers, June is the perfect time to think about how your team is set up heading into calving. So today we're bringing you practical tips and real stories from the data to the dairy shed. We're joined by Jane Muir, Senior People Specialist from DairyNZ, and Fiona of Fiona and Tom Langford, 2025's New Zealand Dairy Industry Awards, Share Farmers of the Year and winners of the People and Culture Award, which DairyNZ is proud to sponsor and support. In this episode, we'll cover how to onboard new staff well, support wellbeing and avoid burnout, build your leadership and grow your people. Tēnā korua, Fiona and Jane, thank you for joining us.
Hi Jack, nice to see you.
Hello.
Before we get into it, let's find out a little about you and Thomas. Fiona, tell us a little about yourself and your farm business.
Tom and I have been contract milking for 5 years now. I was managing for 3 years prior to that, so we have 1,100 cows on a split calving farm, which keeps us nice and busy. We also have a 6, a 4 and a 2-year-old boy, so the farm's probably less busy than the boys are, to be honest, but yeah, they keep us super, super busy as well. So we have typically 4 full-time staff on farm with us, and yeah, split calving keeps us really, really busy, but we've had a team with us for quite a long time now, so 3 of the staff who are with us have been with us for our entire contract milking time on farm.
Brilliant, thank you. Now, to you, Jane, let's start with the big picture. Why is a high-performing team so important for farm profitability and resilience?
I love it how you start with a short question, Jack, with a big answer. Put simply, I think high-performing teams achieve better results whilst having an enjoyable work experience. And so because that's effective and it's a good time, it's therefore sustainable. And that means people lock down, they strengthen their skills and their experience, and that ultimately enables that team to deliver even greater outcomes over time. Most of us have experience with somewhere in life, whether it's in a workplace, sport, or in a classroom, where a group of people have worked together to achieve great outcomes in a positive way, and that's good teamwork. So I think a good team means people want to deliver their best, and they're also much more likely to stay in their jobs because they feel that success and know that they're a part of it.
That creates the obvious question of how do you create a high-performing team?
I very strongly believe great leadership, management and culture. That is what the research shows. It's all what we all know and we feel from experience. And it is also what our employees on our dairy farms say to us every year in our employee survey. We've been running our employee survey now for 7 years, and it really highlights the importance of those 3 things: leadership, management and culture. So good leadership, that's things like planning and communication, explaining the why. Good management, things like decent hours of work, rosters that give good time off and competitive remuneration. And good culture, things like feeling appreciated, having a bit of fun, people feeling safe physically and emotionally. And every year the quality of responses that we get amazes me. We really do have a workforce of people who want to work in a great team and deliver great things, and they know what they need more of to achieve that. So my example for that would be when asked the question, on your current farm, which factors would most improve your work efficiency, something everybody is looking for? Overwhelmingly, the top answers were improved communication and improved planning. Employees said exactly the same things last year. So as we kind of head into our busiest time of year, I think everyone should be thinking about that. How can communication and planning be improved on farm? Fiona, congratulations on your recent win as the 2025 New Zealand Dairy Industry Awards Share Farmers of the Year. Amazing. And you also picked up, very close to my heart, the DairyNZ People and Culture Award. So well done on that.
Thank you.
From your experience, what parts of those sort of findings resonate with you from the employee survey?
In particular, the communication. For example, we use tactics like WhatsApp. So you have group WhatsApps for different types of communication. So we have a group WhatsApp for everybody. We have a cowshed one. We have different types of WhatsApp, minerals, feed. And I think that communication where everyone's getting the exact same message. So you're not giving a message to one person and then it's slightly different to another person. Everyone's getting the same message. So that's been really key for us, especially having 4 staff. The planning one's always interesting because it's really easy to go, let's have everything planned. And I'm quite a planned person, so I like things planned. But we all know on a farm it's never quite that simple, and plans often have to change multiple times a week. Stock trucks start coming on different days than originally planned, or different times, or don't turn up at the time they're supposed to, or things like. And that's just one example. So it probably then comes back to the communication of why it's changed or that it has actually changed. So I think communication's probably the biggest factor for me. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Fiona, you said you have 4 staff and you run a split calving system, so you're milking year-round, which keeps you busy. Could you talk us through your rosters and how you manage that across the season?
We definitely don't have the best rosters that are out there, but a big thing that we do is around managing hours and making sure that staff hours aren't going excessive. So we use PaySource, so I'm monitoring PaySource all the time for staff hours. In terms of rostering, I preset a roster for the entire year, so they know their rostered days off for the entire year, and we very rarely change that. It might be the odd occasion where you have a herd test and the person who's rostered off is happy to swap their days off, but we would never expect them to swap their rostered days off. Their rostered days are theirs. They're set for the year. They're theirs. They can plan around that. And another thing we do is we're really flexible with annual leave. We are lucky that my husband and I both can work on farm, and we do have good family support, but I think annual leave is so important. And if staff want to go do something, it doesn't matter whether I would consider it important. If it's important to them, then I should be able to give them the annual leave. So if they request annual leave, 4 days in advance or more, the answer is yes. And then it becomes our management issue to replace that FTE or come up with a solution on how we run the farm on those days, because time's important to them, family time's important, whatever is important to them, that's theirs.
And that's obviously working because 3 of the 4 people you employ have stuck around for a long time.
That's a benefit of being self-employed, right? We manage our time as well. But if I couldn't go and do the things that I really wanted to do that were important to me in life, then what's the point in working as well? So, and that's the same goes for them too. If something's important, and it's as important as someone who wants to spend the day with their cat because no one else was at home. If that's important to them, that's important to them. So, and it doesn't matter. My business needs aren't any more important.
You said it's not the best roster. What is your roster and why is it not the best?
Well, so they have 8 on, 1 off, 9 on, 3 off. So a 3-day weekend every 3rd weekend. But you are seeing a lot of rosters now where it's 5 and 2 or 6 and 2, things like that. So they're not getting the most days off, I guess, compared to other farms. But we're still managing the hours that they work each week. It's just mornings can be really, really busy split calving. We can have up to 7 or 8 herds. So when you're calving and things like that, getting cows in, it's really busy. And then afternoons you do a few less hours, but you just need the people on the ground in the mornings as well. So we have just installed a new cow shed, which has been really nice. But the old cow shed was a 50 bale cow shed, 1,100 cows. So by all means, if someone looking from the outside in, it was definitely not the most attractive job to recruit for. Staff retention is really important to us because we know the number of applicants, especially in the past, that we got for the roles was very, very low. So it's really important that we keep the good staff that we have.
Okay, that's interesting. Jane, how does what Fiona has described compare to what you saw in the employee survey and to what employees need or want?
It's always really interesting, that roster versus hours of work conundrum, which one's the most important. Certainly around rosters, over the years we've seen a dramatic shortening of rosters. So 5 and 2 used to be very rare. It's now becoming, I think, when we fully analyse the results, it may be one of the more popular options. So it's so hot off the press, the results from the survey, that we haven't got all the details. And every employee, and there's hundreds of them, that filled the survey out, wrote down their roster. So we've got a bit of work to do. But what we also do is ask a lot around hours of work. If I start with the busy one there, calving, so 71% of employees said they worked over 50 hours a week last year. And I don't think that surprises anyone, but 25% of employees said they worked more than 60 hours a week last calving. And I think that's pretty tough. Like over 60, that's quite long. And that response has been really consistent for 4 years now. So I think that's an area we need to look to improve, because most people aren't working at their best when they hit 60 hours, and safety and wellbeing risks really multiply then. During the rest of the milking year, we see numbers of people working more than 50 hours drop to about 41%. And then once the cows have dried off, that drops right down to 15%, which really shows that seasonal nature of dairying, which we know exists. I mean, Fiona's got split calving, so that's not the norm, but it's certainly quite common, and it keeps that pressure on for a bit longer. But yeah, I think the numbers feel right, which is why we have such great faith in this employee survey. One other question I think is really important to address is around what employees think about those hours. So we ask employees if they think they worked too many hours during last year's calving. And it's really interesting. It fascinates me every year that 60% of employees say they didn't feel they worked too many hours last calving. So my take on that is that mostly people are happy to step up those hours. They recognise the need. They know they're a critical cog in the wheel, and they're happy to do their bit. But there is a caveat that sort of 18% of people did feel that they worked too many hours, and another 19%, they worked a few too many. So it comes back to that communication and planning. Different people have different wants and needs. Fiona was speaking about that with leave. And it's understanding what's driving each person can really help with teamwork, outcomes, and ultimately retention.
Fiona, right now we're in June, which for a lot of farmers, that means new staff starting. Could you share what steps you take when you're onboarding new people to your farm to help them kind of settle into their new roles?
Yeah, so I guess at first it starts with trying to recruit the right person for the role, and I think that's another whole conversation, but starting with the right person for the team. So if we get through the recruitment process and we don't feel we have the right person that's going to fit in our current team, then we start again and make sure we have someone that actually fits in with the existing team that we have on farm. In terms of onboarding, so we have our orientation checklist that we go through. First thing we do on day one is health and safety. So that's pretty much the very first thing. And then we go through a checklist, making sure that we've definitely got all the contracts signed, all the job descriptions, everything like that. So all our tick boxes, but also going for a trip around the farm, show them around the farm, meet all the neighbours or staff or things like that. And so we go through a process where we systematically work through. Then in the first sort of week or two, it's things like going through the farm goals, the vision. So Tom and I have our vision set and our values, and so we go through that in the first week or so with them. So, and we recruit to that as well. We recruit people with the same values as us, because we know otherwise it doesn't work out if we've got opposite values. The job expectations come with the job description, but then also going through after a month, we would typically have a discussion about how they're actually tracking on what our expectations are. So there's a clear discussion there around these were our expectations and actually you're exceeding them, or you know what, there's a couple of areas here that we feel like we need to work on or come up with some better training. All of our equipment, so all our machinery and things like that, everyone's trained on them, signed off on those. All of the jobs, different types of jobs, so whether it's cups on or feeding out, they're all signed off and trained as well. So we have SOPs for different jobs and things like that as well. So it's systematically working through all of those, through their training register, making sure that we've ticked off the jobs that they need to know how to do, that they understand how they're done, how to do them safely as well. And then we sit down with them and discuss their goals, their short, medium and long-term goals. So this might be in the first month. I don't rush this all in the first week. They've got to get their head around everything that's going on. Might be the first month, first 6 weeks. We sit down and go, hey, what do you want to learn in the short, medium, long term? Where do you want to be? We allow them to share their personal goals if they choose as well, because, for example, if their goal is to go on a holiday in January for 3 weeks, then that needs to fit in with the farm as well, so the ones that might be relevant to us. and we create a development plan from that. So try to do a lot of the development on farm, but also some training courses where relevant as well.
Okay. You said you employ for sort of fit with your values. What kind of thing do you do once you have them on farm around team culture?
Yeah, so team culture's obviously really, really important. And I think some of that, you talked a little bit, Jane, about the survey, how people are actually happy to do some of those extra hours. And I think that comes down to team culture, right? So if they're actually enjoying their job, they're happy on farm, they're actually happy to put in a few extra hours. And that goes both ways a little bit. But team culture for us, so we have weekly or fortnightly meetings where we sit down, have discussions about health and safety, but general things that are happening on farm. But that already builds a bond just all being in a room together. And then especially over calving, we try once every week or every 2 weeks to do like a dinner all together as well. So fish and chips or burgers or something like that. Every now and then a morning tea together as a team. But often that team culture is also built just in the office at the end of the day, having a conversation, like the unorganised stuff as well, just that what happens naturally as well. The other thing to think is that team culture can be derailed really, really quickly. And that's through not picking up niggles early. So for us, for example, we're not only managing our relationship with staff, we're managing inter-staff relationship as well. So if there's any niggles and that comes back to even poor performance, right? Because people get frustrated with poor performance. So it's really easy to ruin your staff culture by having niggles that aren't picked up early as well. So trying to pick those up as early as possible, address them fairly for everyone, and then that helps as well.
You and Tom both had corporate careers before you went dairy farming, although you grew up on a farm, right?
I did, yes.
I'm wondering, what did you bring and what did you leave behind in the corporate world when it comes to people and culture?
What we brought is a little bit more formality. So I think farming can be really, really relaxed and it can be crude, but I think managers and leaders can sometimes forget the way they're communicating as well, and they get a little bit too relaxed around the way they communicate. So always really, really aware that you're talking to a person that swearing or getting angry actually has quite an impact on those people. So just trying to keep that frustration to ourselves. You would very rarely in an office in the corporate world see somebody, blowing their top essentially, but you probably hear that quite often in the farming world. So just being aware around the impact that has on the people around you. And then I guess what I left behind is that real true formality of signing everything off to make decisions, things like that. So there is a little bit of a balancing act, right? We're farming, things change every day. It is slightly more relaxed, you're outdoors. So it's a balancing act between the corporate and being a little bit too relaxed in the way that we communicate and the way that we manage people.
Thank you. Jane, what does great leadership look like today on a dairy farm? It sounds like it may have shifted from 20 years ago.
Well, I think it probably had a bit of room to move from 20 years ago. Not on all farms, but yeah, that yelling was something that we used to get reported on a lot. And I'm pleased to say I think it's less, but it still does exist and it's never acceptable, yeah. To me, great leaders, I think that they're authentic, self-aware, I think reliable and consistent communicators, and they inspire me to want to be better and actually to be better, and they help me to do that. So that's what I think great leadership is. There's also no one size fits all with leadership. So there's not a perfect way that people have to look. They do have to be authentic, but they do know what their strengths and weaknesses are and when to ask for help and when to ask for other people to step in if they're not capable of doing something, especially when you're leading a business. If you can't do it, you need to ask others. So if you're not a good people manager, then you need to employ somebody who is a good people manager to manage the team. So I think that's sort of a perfect segue, Jack. That we have relaunched Workplace 360, and one of the reasons that we have Workplace 360 is to encourage farmers to understand what their strengths and weaknesses are around sort of having a great workplace and great jobs within that workplace. We really want people to understand, where they're going well and what they need to do to improve. And we have totally redesigned it for this season. So we just have gone live very recently. And we're pretty excited about that because we think farmers will value the experience so much more. It's a totally different experience. We think farmers will love it and we think that they'll learn more from it. And the key changes are it's shorter, it provides learning within the tool itself, and it showcases what good looks like. And of course, the report has links to resources. Dairy farmers have access to so many tools and resources to support them where they don't know what to do. Some of those resources are from DairyNZ and some from other partners, and that will help support farmers in helping us to achieve our goal of great jobs and great workplaces, and that will help us better attract and retain great people.
Cool, that's exciting. Now, Fiona, have you had a look at the updated Workplace 360?
I have had a quick look at it. I was familiar with the old one. I think, the old one was just sort of almost a tick box, whereas now we've created a tool that we can use. So that's really cool to see that as a tool, and it's got tips and it's got hints on what to do and how to improve. So I think this is much more interactive and much more usable as a dairy farmer.
Oh, I'm so pleased to hear you say that, Fiona, because we did a lot of farmer testing and we really want people to learn and not feel like it's not a tick box exercise, but rather an opportunity to improve.
Jane, Workplace 360 is a component of Fonterra's cooperative difference. How does it work? What's it doing there?
Yeah, so this year, completing Workplace 360 is the requirement for the people and community pillar. And I want to really reiterate that completing it, there is no score required. That's important because it is about encouraging people to learn. And if you don't address what the gaps are or understand what they are, then you can never improve. So yeah, this year people go in, they complete the tool. Within the tool itself, it says, look, do you want to share the fact that you've completed this with Fonterra? If farmers choose yes there, then DairyNZ will take care of that with Fonterra, but we will not be providing the results. No individual results go, only the fact it was completed. So I think that's powerful. I think it's, really awesome that Fonterra recognises that this is about education, creating awareness so that people can feel safe to answer honestly, create change and build better workplaces for our employees and for employers themselves, because great teams, they impact everybody on farm. It makes a difference.
Brilliant. So it sounds like you've managed to achieve change in the tool as well as in Workplace 360. Well done.
Yeah, and we are really excited. And look, next year you can expect that the questions within it will be different, and we will take people on a sort of a progressive learning journey. For those that haven't gone, and hardly anyone will have yet, I really encourage people, if you can answer no, and if you answer no to the different questions, you get learning and responses immediately within the tool. So even if you think, yes, I do that, you might like to try pushing no just to get that answer and that information. And then when you finish the tool, you will get sent a report. You can download it immediately. You'll also get emailed it. And again, really encourage people to actually read that report and think about the commitments that they made and access those links. I mean, the levy pays for those tools and resources that exist on the DairyNZ website, and there's some great tools and resources. So you don't have to start from scratch developing templates around how to do things. Look at the resources, follow them up, and get a flying head start.
Okay. Well, Jane, let's talk about upskilling the team. What are the ways that farmers are investing in their team's development?
Yeah, well, winter is a great time right now to be thinking about a bit of training. There might be, on some farms anyway, a time to relax, probably not on Fiona's, and possibly not today for the people that have just moved. But it is a great time to uptrain, and there's a heap of events on. So what I'd encourage people to do is jump on the DairyNZ website and look through the DairyNZ offerings. Also know that a lot of local vets have got training running coming up for farming, and really excited about this because this is one that's quite close to both your and my heart, Jack, actually, is Calving Smart. So we've got 20 Calving Smart events happening nationwide in June and July. They're 2.5-hour sessions. They're free to attend for all dairy farmers and their teams, and they're a really great way to get ready for calving. So we've just launched the promotion of those events. I'd really encourage people to jump on. They're some of the events we get the best feedback about every year, and you can register at dairytraining.co.nz/calving smart. That's all one word. So really worthwhile getting that. And I would be remiss in a podcast on leadership not to mention that Dairy Training, which is a subsidiary of DairyNZ, they have an emerging leadership course. We get so much feedback from farmers that leadership is a challenge on farm, and particularly around that 2IC kind of farm manager. How can they find people with the right skills? That emerging leadership course, it is NZQA recognised. It's a short course. Really encourage people to investigate that, and spring applications are opening soon. So that's a great one to check out.
And Fiona, what training or development opportunities do you prioritise for your team? Anything off that list or something different?
Yeah, so quite a few. So, I mean, when we first started on the farm, my husband's from Auckland and I'd grown up on a farm, but I jumped straight into a manager's role with no farming experience at all. So we did almost every course available under the sun just to get ourselves upskilled. We had, the people management and the HR and the health and safety understanding, but we didn't have the farming side of it. So in terms of our staff, we let them lead it a little bit in those development plans that we develop with them. But anything from primary ITO to going to the calving smart, or we've done the milking smart versions, and we've done all those sorts of events. Dairy Women's Network often puts on a lot of webinars and things like that as well. So just taking the opportunity to jump on some of those different courses, and likewise vets, local vets and things like that as well. So a combination of paid courses, primary O, learning for those who are keen on it, through to sort of 1 day or couple hour courses. And then there's some staff who are not keen on those sorts of courses or any courses at all. It's not for them. Theory is not for them. And so then the training's on farm for those people, because they want the practical on farm training, and that's what they're more comfortable with. So it's also being familiar with what your staff want to do and who they are as a person, and what works for them in terms of learning.
And I think that is a really important point, actually. That on-farm training is so important. So it's great to get off-farm, and whether it's formal training or non-formal training, but always on-farm training has to support what people learned off-farm and be done on-farm. We get a lot of feedback about that from employees, how valuable that is. So employers should never underestimate their critical role there.
Yeah, and things like primary ITO, they're only as good to a certain point, but if there's no follow-up on that on farm, there's very little learning in the classroom. In reality, you need that 70% on farm to back that up.
Absolutely.
And to cement it.
Yes.
It's coming up to calving. How can farmers support staff wellbeing before calving starts, and also during their busy season?
It's always a really hard one for us. Well, we start calving start of July and change the season 1st of June. It's actually a really, really short period to have staff trained and ready to go. Some of my best starts have been in September, where they've actually got more time to learn the farm before they get into the thick of it. So that's, of course, a challenge, especially when you've got a whole new team on farm. You're on an entirely new farm as well. But wellbeing, one thing's about getting to know your staff and actually recognising when you can see a shift in attitude or a change in them, that they're actually, it might be their mental well-being's changing, or they need a little bit of extra time off. You can see that shift in them when you get to know your staff. And then it all comes back to that staff culture, I think, as well, enjoying their time at work, enjoying their role, feeling heard, having that communication as well.
Oh, well, look, I agree with all those tips, and I won't speak myself, but what I'll say is that the employee survey, we did ask that this year. So we actually said what are the top factors that influence your well-being, and the top 3, number 1 was a good boss. So I think that's what Fiona's saying, a boss that will listen, take action where people have got ideas or feeling stressed. Second was feeling valued and appreciated for the work I do. Again, a thank you goes a long way. It's got to be genuine, but, just recognition, some of the things you talked about with culture. A team barbecue suggests you are valued, right? It does. That's the message it sends. And the third one, good hours of work. So those are the three things: a good boss, feeling valued and appreciated, and good hours of work. And I think those are very insightful. As for a place to start, I think very much what Fiona says, talk to your team, really understand what drives them, what ideas they have for calving, and what support they want or need.
Thank you both. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Talking Dairy. I hope you're walking away with some simple, practical ideas to help you build a strong and resilient team this season. Big thanks to Jane and Fiona and Tom in the background for sharing their time and insights. Whether you're getting new staff on board, sorting your roster, or thinking about how to lead well, it all adds up to a better experience for everyone on farm. Remember, small changes can make a big difference. If you want to take the next step, check out the Calving Smart workshops running across the country this winter. They're free and a great way to get your team calving ready. You can also check out the updated Workplace 360 tool at dairynz.co.nz/Workplace 360 to see where you're doing well and where there could be room to improve. And you'll find all the links for that in the show notes. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Talking Dairy. Make sure to hit follow so you can keep up to date with our latest episodes. You can also keep up with DairyNZ News on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn, or go to our website and sign up for our fortnightly DairyNZ News emails. As always, if you have any feedback on this podcast or have some ideas for future topics or guests to have on the show, please email us at talkingdairy@dairynz.co.nz. Mā te wā, Mōri ora, catch you next time.